telling you a little bit about InHerSight. I know Matt gave a bit of an overview, and I'm hoping that a number of you are already familiar with the platform. But in the event that you're not, I want to make sure that you understand where the information that I am presenting is coming from. I feel like today, especially, it can be really difficult sometimes to identify a source or know, can I trust this data? What is this? What was the research? Um, Everything that I am going to share today comes specifically from our platform, from a data perspective, meaning we have captured the data and the insights. It's proprietary to us. You're welcome to send me follow-up questions that are about maybe aspects of the data that we didn't get into, or if you're curious about the details of how we collect it or what that's like and you don't know, I'm happy to dig in there, but it is all of our data. And we've collected this data and it's made us the largest and the most inclusive company reviews platform for women and allies, I should mention. We do have men who use the platform as well. But what we do is we help women at every stage of their career and every stage of their life find supportive companies. And sometimes that's a single company that can support them all the way through. And sometimes that means a lot of change, whether it's because of different life events or because companies have some support in some areas and not in others. But the backbone of what we do and how we support women really is this very large database of anonymous company ratings. This is from women who share their experience working at companies across 17 different areas of support that we measure. And these are areas that research has shown are important to women at different stages. And these are also areas that we've heard directly from women over the years are things that they really want to know about a company, about the culture, about the support, in order to make informed decisions about whether it's the right environment for them. Since we started doing this 10 or so years ago, a lot has changed for women. And because so much has changed and there has been a lot of conversation that's moved and shifted in different industries across different areas of support, it's meant that our data has needed to be more dynamic. And it's meant that we couldn't just go out like some platforms and say, these are the 5 things that we're going to measure, and that's it, and keep that going forever. What's happened is we've seen the changing need, we've heard it, and we have evolved our data to become that much more relevant to the women that we're serving. I know we said we have more data for more than 150,000 companies. It's actually now more than 200,000 companies in the US. And I should specify that when we're talking about what women want and the support that they want, we really are today talking about US-based female talent, because that is where our data is coming from. And when we are supporting hundreds of different employers, a lot of them are US-based, but a lot of them are international, but we're specifically supporting their US operations. But we have data for more than 200,000 employers in the US, and we use it to match women to companies based on what they as individuals tell us they want and need. So to give you an example, a woman may come to us and say, hi, I'm a product manager and I work in finance and I'm mid-level and I'm in the Milwaukee area. And I'm looking for a company where I feel like I'm going to get a lot of advancement opportunity. And what that looks like and feels like for me is I want management opportunities. I want to see other women in leadership. I want to know that there's internal development happening. And then what we do is we look at all of our company data, we look at the job data that we have, and then we make a match based on her needs that she's specified, personal and professional, and what we know about the company from other women who've worked there and from the types of roles that they're hiring for. And we can say, hey, there's a great PM position at Northwestern Mutual in that area, and we think you should check it out. And then she can really dig into that job and dig into that match and feel like it's going to be relevant to her and interesting to her because it's based on this criteria that she set out that she can only get through her interactions with us. One of the North Stars that we use to make sure we're doing a good job for women is the value of our data. And so I put up here one of our favorite stats that 94% of women tell us that our data is helping them make better choices about where they're going to work and where they are going to apply. And that's something that we are really, really proud of. The third area of support for working women that I have to mention is we create something that we now call compassionate commentary. And this is really, it used to just be content, articles, but what it's become in today's day, where so much of the content that's being created is either for search or it's either for created by who knows what AI platform. We've found that the women in our network are really looking for and responding to content that is first person from real women who are going through things, who want to hear stories about how someone navigated something or opinions on a topic that are very personal. So we've created this whole sort of this whole strategy around compassionate commentary that helps them navigate the challenges and the opportunities they have at work through the voices and the stories of specific women. And I think this is something that you should also be paying attention to because you have all of these women in your organizations and their stories that are going to become more and more valuable to leverage. You can see this in video content and things like that, where people are really feeling like they're getting the firsthand story, the firsthand scoop from another person that's helping them with something that they're struggling with or something that they're trying to figure out. So we do a lot of that as well. Just like AI is accelerating sort of this like content creation, it's also probably giving you all a lot more candidates through different platforms that you're using to find job applicants, to get new candidates. One of the things that we're finding is actually that our partners appreciate from us is that we're providing more of the high quality matches and the low volume of candidates. That's like a balance for these big influxes of resumes, because what we do for companies is we give them these branding, job matching, and data opportunities to make better connections with women. So they know that the candidates that they get from us understand their cultures. They're not just hitting a button. They're not being automatically matched and sent through, that there's really a relationship that's been built between the company and the candidate before they end up in their pipeline. So that's a little bit about what our platform does for women, what it does for companies, and why data is such a big piece of what we're going to be talking about today. Are there any questions about what we do? Okay, I don't hear anything, so I'm going to say there's not. Okay, so to get into it, why does it make sense to have a strategy around supporting women today? For me, does it ever or has it ever not made sense to have a strategy focused on women? I don't think so. We are half the workforce. We are an increasing percent of the talent pool. We improve business performance. And maybe most importantly, when it comes to, well, why a specific strategy, is that we evaluate companies, we evaluate jobs, we evaluate opportunities differently from our male counterparts. We use different criteria. We use different sites for research. We go to different resources. So if you are a company that is trying to hire the best and the brightest talent for your organization, which is pretty much the theme of everything we're hearing right now when it comes to company needs, you're trying to do this as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And that means that you need to take a different approach to how you communicate with and where you show up to resonate with women. Um, I'm not going to run through all of the ways that women improve business performance. If you need those types of resources or those stats to help you make a case for a specific strategy like this, please email me. We could talk about this all week, all month. I could send you a lot of stuff. You can even go in and use a lot of those tools now to ask a chat GPT, hey, can you tell me where are all the stats? Compile these. How do women improve business performance? Or, getting more onto the ROI from a recruiting or branding perspective. What is the value of a hire made 2 weeks sooner because I'm recruiting more effectively? That information is out there. And actually, it's out there probably in a lot of other great webinars through places like Matt. But because you can get that elsewhere, I'm going to focus instead on the data that we've collected that I hope is going to help you improve your recruiting efforts, and it's going to help you improve how you support the women in your organizations that you can only get from us. So it's going to be a lot of data. I'll try to get through it as painlessly as possible. But jumping right in, it is May of 2025, and it's important to call that out because our data is changing. So this is the data as of right now. These are the top 3 most important areas of support for women in general at work. So if you are not planning to take a deeper dive into how you can support women and you just need where do I start? I'm just getting our culture going. I want to make sure this is a good place for a lot of different people. These are the 3 areas to focus. I hope you'll go deeper than that, but they are flexible work hours, remote or hybrid work opportunities, and salary satisfaction. I want to, again, make it clear, this is the highest level of relevance you can get for women. And 2 of these, the first 2, flexibility, asynchronous work, the ability to set your schedule, the ability to come and go as you need to, and remote work, these 2 were practically not even on the radar or within reach of the top 5 most important things for women, let's call it 6 years ago. These have been things that, as you know, have become increasingly important to women as they gained more access to them, starting in 2020 with the pandemic. And now, as we come back out of that, these are areas of advancement for them. These are gains that they've made that they're not yet willing to let go of. They are their benefits and their policies that are increasing women's representation in the workforce. They're making it possible for them to do all of the other jobs that they do and still show up effectively at work. And even though this can be really challenging in this time where a lot of companies are figuring out how much of these benefits and policies do we hold on to, how much can we afford to hold on to, where does leadership stand on this, it's really important to know that when women are looking for opportunities, the companies that are still demonstrating support in these areas are winning that talent. It's much easier for them to get applicants on our platform, and it's much easier for them to get engagement from women when they're showing commitment in those areas. But one of the things that's interesting about these top 3 is that even though they're the most popular across the board, if you're just looking at women as a whole, they are not as popular as our top 3 benefits were, say, 10 years ago. And what that means is that while the majority of women are looking for these things, they're also looking for a lot of other things. And we're seeing more diversity in terms of people's must-haves. Usually women come to the site and they pick 3 to 5 must-haves from our list of 17. We're seeing a lot more combinations and a lot more personalizing of what success looks like than we used to. So if we go back 10 years ago when we first started doing this, the vast majority of women, let's say 8 to 9 out of 10 women, would say, I'm looking for these 3 things. I'm looking for a company where I can feel satisfied with my paid time off. I want a company where I feel like I'm being compensated well and fairly for the work that I do. And I'm looking for a company where I feel like my colleagues are professional, respectful, and unbiased. We used to call these the bread and butter benefits. They, until about 2020, would sometimes switch position, sometimes slight differences in, whether it was 90% or 88% that were looking for these things, but they were very consistent. Um, Contrast that with the must-haves of today, and it's more like 5 or 6 out of 10 women are saying those areas are important, and they're filling out the rest of their must-haves with other things from our wide variety. One of the reasons that this is happening is because we're actually supporting more generations in the workforce than we ever have before. And that's one of the areas where we see a lot of differentiation in terms of what people are looking for. We have a solid 4 generations and are starting to introduce Gen Alpha into the workforce. And this is a big driver of a lot of people looking for a lot of different things. But it means that, if you want to have sort of a basic foundation for women, you're starting with those 3 areas that we laid out on this slide. But if you really want to be appealing for women in specific industries, if you're trying to recruit women with specific skill sets, if you're trying to recruit women in different geographies, you're going to be able to be a lot more specific to those needs if you start to build out more and more areas of support, which we'll get into. I also wanted to note a few other top movers in the last 10 years, because I think that they're interesting and they're trends that we haven't seen change. One is that we've just seen learning opportunities and an internal commitment to development continue to rise in the ranks. So that used to be number 7 pre-pandemic on the list. It has jumped into the number 5 spot. It's now being prioritized by more than half of women. I think internal learning and development opportunities are really important benefits for you to be building out and auditing. If you already have some in place, are people using them? Are they the right ones? If they're not, there's probably an opportunity there. One that has been consistently low, but now really unimportant to almost all segments of women, is actually the social activities environment. Of course, this has a lot to do with remote work and spending less time in the office, but it used to be in a low position of 12. It is now the least sought after thing from women. So if you're out there touting a lot of the in-office activities in your game room and the outdated things like that, those are not the things that are going to be winning deeper engagement from the majority of women right now. So I wanted to just take a few minutes to look at some segments within women and talk a little bit about how the segments differ in what's important to them. When I'm going through these, you're going to see that I'm going to be talking about a segment within the group of women that we measure, and then you're going to see the percentage point gain or loss for that group. And how you should think about that is, if we say that flexible work hours are valuable to 70% of, and considered a must-have for 70% of women, for caregivers, that is actually 78 percentage points. It's the percentage point difference for that particular segment. And I should mention that on the side of each thing that I'm showing, you can see how on our platform, employers are choosing to talk about and demonstrate their support across particular areas. And what I want you to notice are not just sort of the topics, like they're talking about flexible hours, but I want you to notice who they're having talk about this benefit, who they are having be the spokesperson, and whether their description of that benefit is something that you think is conventional and expected, or something that is novel or maybe more nuanced, which is the direction where I see a lot of the employers who are winning with this segment go. They are using and leveraging the voices of the women in the company, and they are looking beyond that obvious choice benefit that is starting to seem and feel outdated. So, caregivers, notice I'm talking about caregivers. I'm not talking about working moms. Working moms are caregivers, but now that we talk about all the generations that we're supporting, caregivers look a lot of different ways. They are, they're the moms who are staying home with their new babies. They're the moms who have kids in high school. They're the moms who are taking care of their moms. These caregiving is now it's no longer considered covered if you just have a good parental leave benefit, which is why caregiver priorities, the things that are disproportionately important to caregivers, are flexible work hours. They are still those remote and hybrid work opportunities, except those two are that much more important to caregivers, and their family growth support benefits. We have a metric that is parental leave. That is, how important is that? That is so point in time that while it's really valuable to have that covered and covered well, meaning you have a generous parental leave benefit, it's just the tip of the iceberg for caregiver benefits today. So my recommendation, if you are looking at your workforce and you see we have a lot of caregivers here working for us, I wonder how they feel supported, or I want to make sure they feel supported, or we don't have a lot of caregivers, we want to make sure we're not excluding this segment, since a huge percent of working women are caregivers. We want them to find our company appealing. My recommendation is to take a look at the benefits that you have for caregivers and see, do we have things outside of the mom of a new baby, or are we focused on things like just parental leave, those fun old benefits of diapers that are subsidized or things like that? Those are still very valuable, but to really show your support for caregivers, they're too narrow, they're too limited, and they don't include enough types. So one piece of homework is to go back and look at, well, what are the ways that we support working parents? Or are there things that we're doing that are especially valuable to caregivers, but we haven't positioned them that way, or we haven't emphasized that one of the reasons why we have this policy or this program is because we want our caregivers to be able to use this. A good example is we're coming up on summer, and a lot of our employers are talking about things like summer Fridays, 4-day work weeks, or different types of hours, and often that can be just positioned as summer fun. Make sure to call out that this is a great way for the caregivers at the company to spend more time when schedules can be more in flux, doing some of that additional work. Sometimes it's just about how you position the benefits that you have. But know that if you have a lot of caregivers in your office, these are the things that they're thinking about, even more than the average woman at work. When we look at our data, we have so many different dimensions. We also look at what are priorities and needs based on race and ethnicity. If you go to a company scorecard on our site, you can actually look at support experiences with support by all of these different dimensions. I selected this one. It's a huge priority for a lot of the employer partners we work with, which is making sure that the Black women in their organizations feel supported. These are the things that the Black women who are evaluating your company as a potential workplace, or who are working for your organization, are statistically significantly more interested in than other women. They're looking to see, is there demonstrated support when they're escalating issues around safety or harassment or microaggressions? 8 percentage point increase in evaluating and prioritizing and looking for employer responsiveness. Support for diversity. Is there any training in place around some of these topics that we just talked about? How are the programs? Are there affinity groups? 14 percentage point increase in prioritizing and putting a must-have on support for diversity, and then a 15 percentage point increase for the sentiment and satisfaction with having access to equal opportunities. A lot of the employers who are doing a great job in this area are shining a light on the women who are in their leadership positions or on their leadership teams, who can then help tell the story of how they're creating a culture of belonging and support, and really bringing that to life through that demographics experiences with their workplace, which is incredibly important. And it's much more meaningful than just putting out a statement that you have a particular affinity group. There are a lot of differences in generational priorities. One of the things that I wanted to call out is the baby boomer generation. Now, if anyone has questions about the other generations, Gen Z, millennials, what are their priorities? Feel free to send me an email, follow up with Matt. We have all these tools where we can just look and it just generates all their top priorities. All of them ranked, but some that I wanted to call out was, I thought the baby boomers' priorities were interesting, that they are looking for either policies or stories that show company cultures that that ensure that people are respectful, professional, and unbiased. That's one of those older metrics that used to be popular in general among women, but it is growing in importance to the baby boomer generation, as is sense of belonging. So a tip, if you are thinking about appealing to different generations, or you're looking around your workforce and you're saying, either looking at applicants, you're looking at your employees, and you're saying, we'd really like to have more age representation here. A tip would be to start with something really simple, like auditing the images that you're using. This can go a really long way, of your employees and your teams. Try to make sure that on your career sites, that on your website in general, on your partner sites, that you're selecting photos that show that people of all ages and generations are welcome and included in your company culture. I think Whataburger does a really good job with that. I picked their banner image, but if you look at their policies, you look at their profile, how they talk about the family that they're building, they do a really nice job of establishing that. Career level, that's another area where if you are trying to get more college graduates in the door and they're not attracted to your culture, there are things that you can emphasize to make your culture more attractive to women who are coming out of college. The flexible work hours, that is another big one. But remote, that's not something you really need for that group as much as you need it for others. They're not as interested in salary satisfaction and the pay, but they want to make sure that they're able to have the flexibility, the learning opportunities, and the development to craft their careers as they see fit. But that changes for women as they go. So if you're trying to reach mid-level women, salary becomes more important, paid time off become more important. And by the time you've reached executive level for senior and executive women, if you're trying to recruit and retain those women, one of the things that I think is really, I love to see, because I think it could start even earlier, but by that point, those women want to see other women in leadership and they want to hear from them. So if you have a Mary Lee Phillips, who is the CEO and who's a woman at the organization, and you are trying to appeal to more senior and executive level women, it's her story that is going to help draw them in and engage them with your brand. It's going to engage them with your job posting, and it's going to make them more invested in potentially joining your team or staying with your team. If you have only one woman in leadership and you want her to stay and you want to make sure that you're retaining her, start thinking about how you're going to round out those leadership teams with more women. Um, I know we're running out of time. Um, People come to us all the time and they say things like, how do we get more software engineers? How do we get more women in engineering? We don't have enough. We're looking for more. Uh, how do we get more women into our manufacturing roles? These are other areas where if you want to stand out and you want to compete in these incredibly competitive fields, you have to get more specific and make a deeper connection. With software engineers, we always recommend talking about mentorship programs. If you have mentorship programs, go ahead and build out the story of how they work, find mentors to have conversations with that candidate, to talk about the program. These are the types of things that are going to resonate with that candidate and make them more interested and engaged. Or if you're seeing a lot of attrition from women engineers at your company, that can be something to introduce that is rarely done well, unfortunately, at companies, but is still something for that particular segment that is really valued. In manufacturing, the learning opportunities or the sense of belonging, these are things you feel like I'm going to be going into a field where I might be the only. How do I know I can bring my whole self to work? Finding women who can help tell that story, or making sure that you're putting out policies and programs or training opportunities that help women feel like this is going to be a place where this is prioritized are really valuable. In addition to the things that we look at that we call the must-haves for women, we're constantly polling women every 2 weeks on tons of different topics. Sometimes those topics are related to work, but probably not as useful for you. Maybe they are things like how often women dream about work and how do those dreams make them feel? Are they stressful? Are they funny? And we have conversations about that. But sometimes we talk about things that you could directly pull into some of your programming to show that you're listening to what women are experiencing and you're paying attention and you're responding to it. Some of the findings that we've had from recent polls that I thought would be interesting to this group. One was about which unspoken workplace expectation do you most wish would disappear? 23% said always saying yes to extra work, or 22% said being reachable during PTO or sick days. A lot of you probably think this isn't something that's part of our culture. But going out, especially this time of year when a lot of people are planning PTO or people are needing other people to pick up extra projects as they're out of office, and reminding managers that they should be modeling that you don't have to be available on your time off, or making sure that you're reiterating through company communications what the actual expectations are. This is a great time to do that. People are feeling the crunch. Women are feeling the crunch of, I'm going to have to pick up extra work, or I'm going to have to be reachable on my vacation. Knowing that that's top of mind for women can just help you have better conversations or better communications when you're thinking about what you should be saying to your employees. How often do you use your company's well-being or wellness perks? 60% recently told us they rarely, never, or don't even have access to them. And the theme that kept coming up in the comments from women over and over is that they really want mental health benefits when it comes to wellness, balanced with the physical health benefits like trainers and gym memberships. That was a quote that came in, but when you look at the hundreds of responses we have, these two things together kept coming up. Maybe you have one, maybe you have the other, maybe you have both, but you haven't promoted it in a while. Mental health benefits as a well-being benefit is still really, really valued by women. And how do you feel that, how often do you feel meetings take up more of your workday than they should? 66% said frequently or very frequently. And the theme that kept coming up over and over was agendas. This is another great way to be like, all right, women are feeling like we're not prepared enough in our meetings. Probably a lot of your employees are feeling that way. If women are feeling that way, they're probably not the only ones. But these are great ways to say, what are the things that we could be reminding our managers about, that we could be testing new things for, the next quarter. I know that at least one company that I worked for would periodically just erase all of the meetings. For all you had to delete all of your recurring meetings, and you weren't allowed to put them back on the calendar until you had a very specific need for one. And those are just things that, again, can show that you're creatively listening to and responding to women's needs. There are a couple of ways that you can keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with women the way we do. You can actually sign up to receive these. It's totally free. It's not a paid service for women or for employers. Anyone can participate. You can take the polls yourself, and you can see, what are women feeling about these different topics? And is there a way that I can incorporate that either into our internal communications, or, if you have ERG groups, this is all good fodder for them to talk about as well. So I would recommend subscribing to some of our data emails. And I also would recommend that you check in regularly on your scorecard on InHerSight and see how you're doing across all of the different areas that we discussed. I think I'm way over time, so I'm going to stop here.
No,
Nobody interrupted with
perfect
questions.
No, that was incredible, Ursula. So much data. I loved being able to hear about the differences in preferences from different generations or ethnicities or career levels, or it's, there's not one company out there that's good or bad or right or wrong. To your point, we're looking for matches, and different women have different preferences depending on what matters to them. And so understanding what you can offer from a company standpoint and from a position standpoint, because some of your positions may have more flexibility or less than others, it can help you better attract someone who's aligned with what you can actually offer. So I would highly recommend to everyone to follow InHerSight, follow Ursula on LinkedIn, and thank you everyone for being here. I know we're at time, so we're going to, if it's all right with you, Ursula, we'll include your, at least your LinkedIn, so people can reach you in the follow-up email. And make sure to register everyone for the next webinar next month. We'll get this recording and the follow-up items to you by the end of this week. Thank you everyone for being here, and special shout out to Ursula for taking time to share this information with us. So until next time, we'll see you next month.